Welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Supermac and Gibbo join us as always on a Thursday, and you've probably noticed a new intro. Same band, different song, but a few new graphics and a few of Malcolm's goals, which Malcolm's missed because he's having to reboot his computer. It takes us back to the old days, John.
It is. I mean, it used to be Billy the dog, didn't it? Bless it. And now he's just done a runner. I don't know whether Billy's resurfaced or what's happened.
Possibly. I was going to do the ads, but I tell you what, John, because you've both got a lot to say on this final. Let's go with you first. We'll bring Malcolm in when he gets here. Newcastle United, always the bridesmaids, never the bride. We were hoping to put that right at the weekend. Sadly, we didn't. 2-0 defeat to Manchester United. The elusive search for a trophy goes on. What went wrong, John?
That's a brilliant question. What went wrong, I think, was that the final was at the wrong time for us, Steve. If the final had been before Christmas, we were flying absolutely high and they were struggling. By the time the final did come round, they were on a high, producing results all over the place, and we were on a dip in results. Since Boxing Day, we've really struggled as far as results are concerned. And I think that reflected in the game. And, while the game was on, I looked at their bench and I looked at our bench. And, I mean, they bought on players worth millions. They bought on 2 Holden players. They bought on Maguire, who's an £80 million centre-half, whether he is or he isn't. That's what was paid for. We bought on Matt Ritchie, who's yesterday's man, and Elliot Anderson, who's tomorrow's man. Our bench was so weak, and that is what we're looking at in the development of this club. We can put out a half-decent starting 11, but our bench is woefully short, and Malcolm's been banging on about that for a while, saying if you're in the Champions League, our bench isn't strong enough for that. Well, I don't think the bench was strong enough at the Cup final, and when you saw what they brought on, and you saw what we brought on, there was a huge difference. But
and when you saw what they didn't bring on, John, it was still completely outpowering what we were actually putting on. So, yeah.
I mean, when I was saying there, Steve, about the timing of the final was just wrong for us. I mean, before Christmas, we were flying and they weren't so clever. After Christmas, it's the other way on. I've just got a set of figures to bear that out. When we won on Boxing Day, which was our 6th successive Premier League victory, came on Boxing Day, we were 3rd top, and Manchester United were struggling away beneath Spurs. Manchester United. Now, Manchester United are 8 points ahead of us in the table. And since that Premier League wins on the trot, we've won once and only scored 3 goals in the league. And that tells you how far we have dropped off results-wise since the turn of the year, this year. And Manchester United have gone from strength to strength. Did that last night as well in the FA Cup. And they've opened up the gap that we had over them in the first half of the season. They've turned that completely around, and they've got that gap over us now. And we've got a problem to rescue the rest of the season. We'll obviously be talking about that later when we talk about the games to come. But we've got a problem to turn around what has been a slow drifting away. And it's sad because we started this season so brilliantly and we're flying 3rd top and in a cup final. Brilliant. But now we've got to fight and turn this season round, and that'll take a bit of boldness on everybody's behalf, I would think.
And the brilliant part of the side has been the defence throughout the season. But I think the pressure that they're under is starting to tell on them just at the moment, and they're getting caught on free kicks and stuff like that. But what's not happening is they're not getting any respite at all. We've got a very hard-working midfield, but up front, there is next to nothing happening. And I thought that last Sunday at Wembley was it absolutely typified just how little we get from our forward line. A question for you. When did you last, because Callum Wilson, he's quick. When did you last see him sprint?
I mean, he frightens me, Malcolm, because he doesn't anymore. And when I think how vibrant...
Yeah, very good, John, yeah. Yeah, but I understand it. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and you're right.
Yeah. I mean,
there was a home game. There was a home game about 3 weeks ago, and in that home game, he had one sprint, and it didn't really get him anywhere. And he sort of pulled up, and that was it. Not another sprint since, and not to this day has there been another sprint. And so I think he's carrying the hamstring, and I've seen others. Fortunately, I never suffered a hamstring ever, but I have seen others suffer dreadfully with them, and I think that that Callum Wilson finds himself in that situation. What if anything, what he needs is the summer and a good long layoff of not weeks but months.
I mean,
but it leaves us completely devoid of other forward options, because Isak does not want to play with his back to goal as a front man. He wants to be coming onto things all the while.
I mean, the drop-off in form of Wilson's been quite staggering for me. He scored one goal in his last 13 appearances. And I mean, he was almost a passenger at Wembley, I felt. He was almost a passenger at Wembley. I mean, I was so disappointed. Everything I feared come to fruition, and everything I hoped for never materialized with Wilson. He looked... I mean, I think that he needs to go out the side. I don't think... If you take away the fact that he is Callum Wilson, and we remember what he could do and used to do, you wouldn't employ him in the side at the moment. He doesn't give us anything up top. And I never thought I'd see the day when I said that about Wilson, but he doesn't give us anything up top.
No,
and
no, he's not.
I thought he had a poor final. He wasn't alone, but I thought he was the poorest of a bunch. Malcolm was talking about the defence and rightly saying what a great defence we've had. All of a sudden, we're getting caught out, guys, on the unforgivable. The way we're conceding goals, we conceded 2 goals against Bournemouth and whoever it was from corners, if you remember, just before Wembley. 2 goals on corners, and then the first goal, which was the killer one, on a free kick. On set pieces where you can mark up, which is manna for heaven from us. We went 10 hours and never conceded a goal, if you remember, not so long ago.
Yes.
Now, I mean, I don't know if it's just me, I'll ask Malcolm, but when I was looking on that first goal, which turned the game, because we'd started reasonably brightly without, creating huge chances, but we started brightly. Then San Maximum has a close-in shot. The gear stops it. They go down the other end, get a free kick and score. On the free kick, when I see Shaw lining it up, we took such a high line, I felt, such a high line that when the free kick come in, we were all running back towards our own goal, which is a very difficult way to then flick the header back out.
Yeah.
If you drop off and come onto it,
running back, running towards your own goal, John, it makes it very difficult to defend.
In the word, Malcolm,
particularly in the air,
they were running towar's our own goal, and Casemiro just come
the whole line. So Man United, they were going forward, and the Newcastle players, they were, if they're going to do what Man United were doing, they would have had to have taken their eye off the ball. Pretty much, and a defender can't afford to do that, so they're running, sort of looking over their shoulder all the while.
Absolutely, Mal. I thought the line was far too high.
Yes, it was.
It should have been deeper.
And somebody, please explain to me why.
Yes,
Because I can't think of a good reason. Why not? Why not have the line across the penalty spot instead of the D? And all you've got to do, the best defence that I have ever seen is the defence that Don Howe created at Arsenal. And he created a concept that just stayed all the way through, even to Wenger's time, some 40 years later. And quite simply, it was to push up this is when the opposition have got the ball, that you push right up, squeeze it to as near to the halfway line as you can get, and when the opponent with the ball, when his foot comes back to kick the ball, you drop off 5 yards. But as that foot comes back, if a forward makes a run towards your own goal, towards the home goal, then what you do is you step up again, and he's offside. But to be pushing up in the way that they do, and then to start running backwards without any real purpose, I felt, because if you're just running back at your goal, you're facing the wrong way. A defender should always be facing the ball, and everybody had their back to it. It makes it very difficult because a forward, when the ball's coming over and he's running towards the opponent's goal, that's the way he wants to be running, and that's the way he wants to be heading.
I mean,
but a defender is coming back. How's he going to head it out there?
It was made for Casemiro under those circumstances, and you can't blame the goalkeeper. He had no chance with the defenders running back and Casemiro.
Not really, because there was an almighty line. It was like a cavalry charge coming at you.
Yes, it was. Which is why we had to look at VAR to make certain he was still on side. But no keeper with the greatest reaction in the world, with the scorer that close in, would have been able to get his hand onto a header like that. It was nothing to do with the keeper.
Right, but John, I think you're absolutely right that Eddie Howe and his coaches have seriously got to look at how we first position for free kicks around the penalty area, because it wasn't just the Man United game, but we've seen and goals and dangers being caused in previous games from those free kicks, and really, it's pretty much the only way that opponents score against us.
Yeah, but what worries me at the moment is we're getting done on set pieces at the back, the 2 corner kicks and the free kick at Wembley, and we've forgotten how to score at the other end. Yeah. And, the combination of the two, we've got the difficulty now facing Eddie Howe is that he's got to find a way of reversing a trend which from January the 1st has all been that we don't win. We don't play badly. We don't get hammered out of sight by big scores, but we don't win. We concede on set pieces and we don't score. This trend has got to be changed, whether it's a tweak of tactics, a tweak of personnel, or a morale-boosting thing within the Monday to Friday training ground. But the trend has got to be changed. If we continue with the same trend, i.e. completely loyal to the same side and playing the unchanged team every week, barring injury or suspension, then we're going to change nothing. Then why is this trend suddenly going to change and we're going to go on a winning run? We've got to try something, and this is we've just got to pray that Eddie, who is anything but a fool, is working on that this week and coming up with answers, because I think the answers have got to start with the management and coach giving the answers to players, because players, they follow rather than set the trend. Most players, they just follow like sheep. They need leading, and they'll be looking for some sort of guidance this week on how we change the mold from what it's become in 2023 and get back to what it was. Now, that might mean a change of tactics. I certainly think it needs a freshening up of the side where we can, and that's limited with what we've got available to us.
Yeah.
But I think some changes have got to be made. Obviously, Isaac and Anthony Gordon, who's now available because the League Cup's out of the way, are two obvious changes that can be made if Eddie wants to go down that route, and I would urge him to do so, because we need to change something. If things stay the way they are, results stay the way they are, and that means either a narrow defeat or a draw. And you know, something has got to change just to put us back on course.
Yeah. You know, we seem to get enough of the ball, our fair share of the ball, but we're actually not using it to create much danger in any way. That sides seemingly are finding it way too easy to actually defend against the Newcastle side, you know, and I'll name Bournemouth for one. Newcastle have had a torrid time against Bournemouth, and have hardly made any chances at all. So when you face a side like Man United, if you don't make chances, you have got no chance of winning the game. And Newcastle really didn't make any chances on Sunday.
I tell you what bothers me as well, you know, Mal. What bothers me as well, I've talked about how we are suddenly leaking on set pieces and how we had too high a line on the free kick at Wembley, etc., etc. You know what bothers me as well? We have got one of the best dead ball kickers in the Premier League in Kieran Trippier for free kicks in similar positions to the one Luke Shaw took for their first goal. We have got people that's as big as Gray's Monument. If you look at Dan Burn and you look at Joe Linton and you look at Botman, we put them all in the box when we get a free kick and we never score. Burn gets shoulders above anybody. Ball and so have big men in their box, and yet our set pieces, whether it's a corner or a free kick, don't produce goals. We concede goals on set pieces, but we don't score. And how we don't with people the size of Joe Linton and Byrne and Botman, etc., I'm not certain.
Right, I'll tell you the difference. John, I'll tell you the reason how that I think is the situation, and that is the Newcastle. They get into the box and they stand still, and if the cross doesn't come in, they don't go back out and look to come back in on a run, and so they're on standing jumps. Me on a run, I can out jump somebody who's 8 foot tall if I'm on a run, because it's always going to give you a huge extension more than if you're just standing on the spot. And there, I think, is the problem, because they're all standing on the spot, waiting for the cross to come in, go back out to come back in, you know, and you come back in when the foot comes back and you know that the cross is going to come in, albeit.
But I mean, on set pieces, they should be ready for all that, Malcolm, shouldn't they?
They should be, yes.
On set pieces. When did we last score a good goal from a corner or a free kick, like the Luke Shaw free kick for the first goal?
Sure.
When do we score? And we've got a bunch of Gray's Monument guys in the penalty area, and we don't score.
No, because they get in there and they stand still, John. You know, there's no movement, and if an opponent is standing still, that's a doddle for the centre half. But the centre half's got all sorts of problems. He's going to have his neck twisted off his shoulders. If all the opponents are on the move in the box.
I mean, if you look at the goal scoring,
but a winger shouldn't need to look to cross the ball. Shouldn't need to look. He should just be smacking it in. Somebody should be going near post, somebody far post, somebody coming in a bit after that, hitting the centre of goal. But everybody's on the move, and you want the cross and the run to meet.
I mean, if I going back to dead balls, which are really bugging me because we're letting them in, not scoring them. I mean, if you look, normally, I mean, let's talk about somebody that we hate talking about as a manager, but as a player, Steve Bruce once scored 19 goals in one season for Manchester United. And while some of them were penalties, a lot of free kick round the box, a lot of them were headers on the run. Now, how many goals when on set pieces have Botman and Burns scored? And they're giants. The answer is none. Because Burns' only goal this season was the wonderful run he took, the swaying run with his foot in the bottom corner. Yeah. Botman hasn't scored. We haven't scored headers from your two centre-halves. And that's a classic centre-half who goes up for free kicks or corners, isn't it?
Yes.
And they can get quite a few. You know, when you were talking, Malcolm, about Luton and when the manager was setting goal targets for certain players, he'd set targets for the two centre-halves on set pieces.
Yes, he did.
To score a few goals.
Oh, yes.
We don't score them.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. He was setting targets of sort of like 6 goals for the centre-half and 4 goals for the 6. Well, that's 10 goals over a season from the two centre-halves. That's great. Similar from the fullbacks. So you've got nearly 20 goals coming from your back 4.
Yeah.
You know, we finished up scoring about, I think it was about 86 goals. But it was planted in our heads that not only was it good to do it, we had to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, look, lots of questions and lots of comments coming in the chat. A lot of people, including one of the guys who is watching on LinkedIn. Good evening, Neil Robson says, "Have we been sussed out? We've been playing a certain system, John. Have we finally been sussed by the other teams, and we now have to find that plan B and plan C?"
Yeah, I think we have. I think there's no question about that. And I also think, our success, and it has been success, to get to third top and be in a cup final in the first half of the season is huge success when you remember that we were in a relegation fight last season. I think they have sussed us out, but I think we have punched above our weight through great organisation of the side, camaraderie, team spirit, second to none. No bad apples in the barrel. One for all and all for one. All pulling together, playing one particular way, etc., and with a certain side that knew each other's style, whatever. But you can't punch out. The only side I've ever known in recent times that's punched above their weight for a whole season was Leicester City when they won the Premier League title. They punched above their weight for a whole season. Other sides punch above their weight for a few months and get out of relegation at the end of the season because they've punched above their weight, or sneak into Europe from mid-table because they've punched above their weight. But they don't punch above their weight for a whole season, and that's what we are happening to do. I mean, we couldn't believe it. Everybody was better than they used to be. Whether that's Almiron, whether that's Shaw, whether that's Joe Linton, and they have been. But will they continue to be? It is asking an awful lot to punch above your weight for a whole season. As I say, the only team that comes to mind for me that's done that is Leicester City when they won the title. That's the only team I can think that punched above the weight. And they had some good players, didn't they, as well? I mean, Mahrez was there. Vardy was in his pomp. What a centre forward he was in his pomp. Now he's in the twilight. But he was in the pomp then. But they punched above their weight. We are finding that difficult now. We've got to tweak the tactics. There's got to be a plan B. There hasn't been a plan B because plan A has been more than good enough. And plan A has worked. So we've stuck with plan A and it has worked. It is no longer working. So we've got to have a plan B. And I think we've also got to freshen up the side.
Sure. And John, it doesn't need to be drastic.
Oh,
it just needs a little, a bit of different thinking and a little bit of different positioning, maybe, and you become a different side, a better side. And a side that causes the opposition problems. It doesn't need a massive overhaul.
No, of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't.
No.
But we have become predictable to the opposition, and therefore we've got to do something that makes them think again. And as Malcolm says, it doesn't have to be a huge thing. We've got to boost morale. We've got to boost belief. You know, it's no good saying, well, we're better in results and we're this and that, because it gets. I mean, in the dressing room, it's okay. It's okay publicly, because it gets repetitive, and then players switch off if they hear the same old, and then they wake up and they think, well, we've won one game since December the 26th in the league. You know, it isn't working. You've got to come up with something different. Now, not a lot different, as Mal says, tactics, just a little tweak, a little bit different. Let's close the back door again. Let's go back to basics I mean, the simplest thing, the easiest thing to get right, or if you go back to basics, surely is marking up on set pieces, because you're not caught out. You've got time to get back, mark up, and get in your position. A counter-attack, and you can be all over the shop because you've been attacking and you've got to try to get back into position. Not on free kicks or corners. You've got time to get into position. We've got to do that, and we've got to brighten up the side. Now, how do we brighten up the side? Well, for a start, can I ask you one question? If you've paid £100 million to sign two players, Isaac and Gordon, and you're not scoring goals, why don't you start them?
Yes.
Well, he's going to have to. He's going to have to look at things, isn't he, Mal? He's going to have to look at things moving on.
Sure. Well, I was going to. The next thing I was going to say was that yes, those two guys, they need to play, and it would take a lot of the pressure off of Wilson. Let Wilson just be the target man, and if he gets turned and gets on at the end of something and sticks it in, all well and good. But let's look at these other two coming in, and okay, so Almiron, he scored 10 in a run that was much earlier in the season. That run is well and truly over now. He was invisible at Wembley, I felt, and so pull him out the side. St. Maximin gets a lot of the ball, but actually does nothing at all with it. Very frustrating to play with. He really is. He's got so much of the ball during the 90 minutes that you play, and yet, how many crosses does he get in? How many shots does he get in? And he doesn't. There was that one early on, just before they scored, but that was about it. That was the sum total of Newcastle's attacking prowess, and so Gordon on the left, Isaac on and sort of what both of them sort of on the inside forward channels, with Wilson acting as a target man, so that we're not looking for him to turn and sprint. We've got these two on the ball, and let's see if we can really spark a bit of life into the side, and and get it buzzing again. It was a cup final at Wembley. I didn't see a buzz coming from Newcastle. I saw it from Man United, and even when they were defending for a long spell early on in the game, I felt there was a buzz about them, but I didn't feel a buzz coming from Newcastle at all.
What worries me as well, guys, and I don't want to be critical of Eddie Howe, and I won't be critical of Eddie Howe because the job he's done here has been nothing short of sensational in a very, very short space of time. But I've got to say at this stage that Eddie is so loyal, it's gone beyond the time this has got to stop. He has built up a wonderful, wonderful team spirit among the guys by being politically correct when he speaks in public, which is wonderful, and being loyal to people regardless of form. He's also put together a management team which is on the pitch, where there's about 4 or 5 senior players who drive the committee, if you like, of the team. And that loyalty is now going to be tested. And I tell you how it's going to be tested. And by the way, sometimes to prove you're a good manager, you've got to drop the players you love if the occasion demands it, to show that you haven't got favourites. And if I look at that squad now, forgetting about whether we've got the right guys to come in or not, Callum Wilson could be dropped and he couldn't say a solitary single thing in his own defence. And Dan Burn could be dropped from left back. Whether you then want to play him centre half or not is another matter. But he can be dropped for left back and he could have no complaint. But those 2 guys are 2 guys with a great influence in the dressing room and are on the committee, along with Kieran Trippier, etc., and Bruno, the committee who represent the players. Now, does loyalty go to where it becomes blind loyalty and you play Burnett left back and Wilson, regardless of form, regardless of whether Burns getting exposed at left back, regardless of whether Wilson looks as if he's not hitting a bond or 3 paces, just because you're loyal? Or do you say these guys aren't doing it, so they're going to go out? They're going to come back in. Of course they're going to come back in. And Byrne might have to come back in as a centre-half, not a left-back. But these 2 guys at the moment aren't what they used to be, either of them for me. Byrne at left-back isn't what he was when he first went to left-back. And Wilson is not doing the job. Now, here's the test for Eddie. How loyal is he? Does he turn a blind eye to that and just play them regardless? In which case, we finish about 8th, by the way.
Sure.
Or does he do something about it?
Right, but loyalty first and foremost has got to be to the club, to the people who are employing you, and if what you're putting out, if that's not getting the right results, then you have to do something about it, and there can be no complaints if Almiron were dropped for this coming Saturday. He couldn't have a complaint in the world at all, because he's been almost invisible for the last 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and when you're at in that top area, the European area of the Premiership, you cannot be loyal to anybody who isn't going to keep you there in that position for Europe.
For me, Malcolm,
there's 5 other managers in the top 6. Do you think that if they see somebody having a bad half an hour, they're going to stick with him for the next game? No. One bad half an hour, you're off, mate. You're out. Somebody else gets in there for the next game. And yes, I totally agree. I think Eddie Howe is being too loyal. And that his first and foremost, he has to win games, and if it means making team changes, do it. It must be done. you've got to pick the side that is going to win the match for you. And if that means being a little disloyal, a manager dropping somebody, that's not being disloyal. It really isn't. That's doing the best job you can for the people who employ you.
Sure. I mean, if we're perfectly truthful, in my opinion, at the moment, I said that if Wilson was out or Byrne was out as a left back, they couldn't complain. Miles said Moon couldn't complain. You could say Maxi couldn't complain. It's harder to say who's nailed on and could complain if he was dropped. Bruno, Pope, when he's back from his suspension, etc. Their position's nailed on. But there's very few, guys. There's very few that would have a reason to kick the door down of the manager if he was dropped and say, why the hell? But I tell you what, if I was Isaac, and I'm not saying Isaac's the answer, I'm saying we spent 60 million, so let's find out if he's an answer. Somebody thought he was the answer, as you wouldn't have paid 60 million for him. He's been here 6 months. I know he's had a long injury in that 6 months, but he's been here 6 months, and we don't know precisely what he can do, or we don't even know what's his best position. Is he a centre forward where he was playing for his previous club and where he plays for Sweden? Or is he a 10? Or is he a wide player? I tell you, the one thing he is a £60 million player. So if Newcastle have paid that, surely they've got to give him a run now when we're not scoring goals and the league goes out of the way.
Yeah. And
so at the end of the day, you say he's the answer to the problem or he's not the answer. We've got to go out in the summer and buy somebody else. You don't know if you don't give Isaac a run.
Sure. And what we are experiencing is that that in playing in playing all the games of late, that the defence and the midfield defensively, they haven't had that luxury of being 2 goals ahead, where the pressure eases totally and you're on top and you can and you don't have to push the game. You can just knock the ball about and deny the opposition possession. But when was the last time we were 2 goals ahead? I can remember that we were against Man City, but that's
in the league, obviously. Yeah. In the league, I think it's got top of my head, Steve. But in the league, I think we beat Leicester 3-0, didn't we? Okay.
Oh yes, Leicester.
That was the game.
Okay, yeah,
that was
absolutely.
The game when we completed 6 Premier League wins on the trot.
Yeah.
I think it was Leicester.
That's right. Yeah, well done. Thank you, John. Okay, but it's a fair while back now.
Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah. So what's happening is that the defence, they're under constant pressure because the forwards and attacking midfield players aren't just giving that defence a lighter game, a somewhat easier part to a game. That they're under pressure all the time. That if Newcastle are winning, then generally they're just winning 1-0 and they're never getting that second goal. So the pressure that's on the defence is we daren't let one in because then we won't win. And simply because they know that there isn't a second goal in the forward part of the team. That's got to change. And so there's huge pressure now, I think, there should be huge pressure from Eddie Howe on the forward line, on all the forward line, make changes, because what they're doing is they are unraveling the defence.
I mean, if we go with the front three that we did in the cup final, Almiron, Wilson and St. Maximum, not only at Man City, but in crucial games that are coming after Man City, then we're not going to suddenly start scoring goals.
Yeah.
Because those three haven't been looking like scoring goals, which is why I don't know that Isaac's the answer. I don't know Anthony Gordon's the answer. But somebody sitting on high believed they were to do £100 million transfers, that's big cookies for Newcastle, Malcolm. And we're not scoring goals, and we've got £100 million worth of forward talent sitting on the bench. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to think, well, let's give them a chance. I'm not having a go at Eddie. Eddie's got the way he is. He's bloody brilliant. And he could come up at Manchester City on Saturday, and both of them are playing. And that's great. I mean, I am not having to go. Heaven forbid. I'm so grateful for what we've had. I'm just, if we don't do something now, we are on a slide. You know the kids slide? I take the grandkids and put them on top of the slide, and I know they're coming down. They're not going to go up or stay where they are. They're coming down. We've got to stop that.
Right. Liverpool are playing tonight. They could be above Newcastle.
No, they played last night
and won.
Oh, sorry, they played last night and won. So
and I tell you what,
sorry, if they win on Saturday, sorry, that's what I meant. If they win over the weekend and Newcastle don't,
they'll be above.
They lose at Man City, then Liverpool go ahead.
On Boxing Day, we were third top with Spurs and Manchester United beneath us. Today, we're fifth top with Spurs and Manchester United above us, and we can feel the breath of Liverpool and Fulham on the back of our neck.
Yes.
Now, if we do not get a result at Man City, I hate the word result at Man City because 6-0 defeats a result. If we do not get something out of the game at Man City, and that's more than possible the way Man City are going, it's probably the hardest game on the calendar is Man City away in a season. If
I agree totally on that.
There, then we've got to start, because you know what? We have a reality check, and it's now. It's against City. How do we approach that game after the disappointment of Wembley? In the next 4 games after Man City, 3 of them are very winnable. They're against Wolves, they're against Nottingham Forest, and they're against West Ham. They're 3 winnable games. But I'll tell you something, guys. We've just had a run of winnable games in the Premier League against Leeds and Bournemouth, etc., and we haven't won any of them.
And West Ham.
Yes, we haven't won any of them, Malcolm. Yeah. So that's got to change. You know, it's okay saying, well, we'll take a defeat with honour at Man City and we'll put it right with those 3 games to come. The current trend is that we're not putting it right in those 3 games. And, by the way, if we draw those 3 games, so we don't lose, that's not putting it right. That's not enough points. Single points are okay if you're bottom of the league because other teams are getting beat. But if you're where we are, you can't keep going 1 point. We've only lost 2 league games all season, but we've dropped from 3rd to 5th, and the teams behind us are now breathing down our neck because you've got to win more than we won. We've won once. Boxing Day.
We would have settled at the start of the season for a good cup run and not been involved in a relegation battle. And that's where we're at. Expectation is too high because
you know why,
we've been in that position because we've been in that position all season. And in the cold reality, Newcastle at this moment in time don't have the commercial revenue to go and spend crazy money like the likes of Chelsea, Everton have, etc. And that's where we are. And that's where we are. And it's going to feel disappointing if we haven't won the cup. And if we slip out of Europe, lads, I know where everyone's coming from. It'll feel disappointing. But we are ahead of schedule. But it's not all lost yet. And I've got a feeling of doom and gloom after sitting and listening to you guys tonight. But I genuinely feel Newcastle can turn it around. But it's up to Eddie now.
Yes.
This is his biggest test. He's got to start looking at other options. He's got to look at Isaac. He's got to look at
Can I just take us back on a comment that was made in a text, and it was talking, and then it then mentioned. Oh dear me, the right-hand sided player. His name's escaped me just for the moment. The right-hand sided Murphy. Thank you. Yes, Murphy. Now. So The comment was that it was just yes. We give Murphy 4 years. Is he good enough? The thing with Murphy is, and he isn't as good a player as Almiron. He's not as good a player as St. Maximin. He's not as good a player as a number in the side. But what he does is cross the ball and he shoots. Now, isn't that what's lacking in the side?
Yeah.
So isn't it better to get somebody in the side who can turn things round? St. Maximin won't turn anything round for Newcastle United. He doesn't cross, he doesn't shoot. And so he's not going to change a game in the favour of Newcastle.
In that
Somebody
case,
like
Malcolm,
Murphy, he will change it because he gets crosses into the box, he gets shots on a goal, and
what I would do though, Malcolm, we had Murphy on the books, and we still spent 40 million on Anthony Gordon, who gets crosses in and gets shots.
Yes,
you've got to get Gordon in and see if he can do it.
Absolutely, John. Absolutely, and I think that what should be played on Saturday, and it's against one of the very strongest teams in Europe, for heaven's sake. I think we've got to look to play Wilson up front with his back to goal, knocking it off, so that on the inside right channel we've got Isak, inside left channel we've got Gordon. And let's see what they can do. They're the big money guys that have come into the side, for heaven's sake. Let's give them the chance, and let's stop messing about with people who don't cross the ball and don't shoot. We need goals. That's what wins games. We need to be scoring goals, and we're not.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, well made. I don't think you're going to get any arguments out of us on here. Okay, Malcolm, I just want to show you something, because with you being off air, we've got a new intro. Here it is. Needless to say, there's no footage of John in nightclubs or bars around the northeast, Malcolm.
I paid a lot of money to make certain that was the case, Steve. Don't worry about that, my friend.
All right, we'll have a quick break. I didn't want to interrupt you guys in your pump. We've got to do the ads, and then we'll be back to look ahead at Manchester City of the weekend. Here's the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at skipsandbins.com. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Easy contract, free and pay as you go, waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria. You can order them from mrvickies.co.uk or by calling 01768 210 102. Welcome aboard to Fruy Vita Getaways. You can email them at fruivitagetaways@gmail.com. Call or text them 0792 842 7895. Please join and share their Facebook group as well at Fruy Vita Getaways. Book your holidays or short breaks in the UK or around the world with them. Let them find your happy place. ABTA and ATOL registered. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle. And the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com, where you can buy lots of t-shirts and merchandise. If you want to subscribe to the show, hit the subscribe button underneath this video today. It is free to do so. Hit the thumb up to like the video. It's good for the algorithm. And click share to share to your other social media. If you do subscribe, we do send you a free car sticker. To get that, email John nufcmatters.com and he'll post you one out. If you want to join the NUFC Matters cult, then put your smartphone over this QR code now and it will take you straight there. Alternatively, go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and you can join for a one-off payment of £25. You'll receive a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw. You can also join via YouTube, and if you click join beneath the video, you will see a variety of prices and how you can support the channel. You can alternatively make a donation with a super chat in the chat tonight. Just click the $sign. We're also available on iTunes and Spotify and other podcast providers. We also help the food bank on this show. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk is where you'll find the matchday bucket and you can make a virtual donation 365 days of the year. As always, we've got a whole host of events coming up throughout the year. An evening with Nobby Solano takes place on Saturday, the 25th of March at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets £15. Book now at nufcmatters.com. An evening with Peter Beardsley at Leamington Labour Club. Tickets are £20. 31st of March. And you can get them direct from the venue. An evening with Nobby Solano. Good Friday, the 7th of April at 4 p.m. Tickets are a tenner and available behind the bar at Felling Cricket Club in Gateshead. An evening with Supermac, hosted by Gibbo at the Tynemouth Surf Cafe, Tuesday the 11th of April. And tickets direct from the venue. This is a limited ticket event, only 35 tickets available, so book soon. And an evening with Frank Clark and John Gibson, Thursday the 20th of April. Tickets are £15. Book now at nufcmatters.com. In June, Rob Lee will be at Louis' Liquor Store in Newcastle, and you can get tickets direct from the venue. And an evening with Rob Lee, Lee Clark, John Beresford takes place the following evening, Friday the 2nd of June at the Grand Hotel in Gosforth. This is in aid of the Heel and Toe charity, and tickets are available from their website, www.heelandtoe.org.uk/events. And if you're a boxing fan, the Night of Champions comes to Gateshead at the Fed. Frank Bruno, Ricky Hatton, Nigel Benn and Joe Calzaghe are part of the UK tour, and you can get your tickets from www.goldstarpromotions.co.uk. Okay, Newcastle United travel to Manchester City this coming Saturday, 12:30 kickoff live on BT Sports. All away tickets have been sold, so 3,000 Geordies travelling down to Manchester. We go into the game sitting fifth in the table, 4 points behind Spurs with 2 games in hand on the London side. And as John mentioned earlier, although we've only been beaten twice in 23 Premier League games so far, we have just collected a maximum of one win in 7 games. It's not good. Mm-hmm. As for team news, Nick Pope, Anthony Gordon, Martin Dubravka are all available after missing the cup final. There was a fitness doubt over Bruno. We'll find out more tomorrow. It was alleged that he picked up an ankle injury, but he was pictured in training today, so fingers crossed. Ahead of our visit, Pep Guardiola's side won 3-0 against Bristol City in the FA Cup on Tuesday, winning 10 Premier League games this season at home. The only side to defeat them at the Etihad was Brentford. They did draw with Everton, but they've got a fairly formidable home record. Referee is Simon Hooper. This is his 3rd game in charge of a Newcastle fixture. The 2-0 home victory over Forest. Of course, he was refereeing there, and the 0-0 draw with Leeds United at Gallagher, which was fairly recently. VAR is Michael Salisbury. So, John, out of the frying pan into the fire with this one. Can you see us getting anything at all?
Anything's possible in a 2-horse race, but to be truthful, I can't. I don't think I forecast Newcastle to lose in 2023. I think every game I've forecast with a win, and we've drawn, and then we've started to lose. We're actually going into this game, guys, desperate. When you think we lost 1 game in the league in all of the season, right down to Christmas, and we lost 2 games, if you include the FA Cup at Sheffield Wednesday when it was essentially reserve side we sent out. So we've only lost 2. But we go into this game, and if we lose it, we'll have lost 3 on the trot. Home, we'll have lost to Liverpool, Manchester United, and Manchester City. So having lost 1 all season, we can lose 3 on the trot. And I'm not doing it down. I've got to reiterate that I am thrilled to bits for what we have achieved. I am just desperate that we don't throw it away at the end. Now, I'm more desperate, if I'm brutally truthful, about what happens after Manchester City, that we go on and win against Wolves, Forest and West Ham. The other game, by the way, in that 4 is Manchester United at home, and we all want to win that, don't we? But the 3 winnable games that follow, I'm more concerned about. I mean, when you look at Manchester City's bench, dear me, that's anybody's first team. You look at our bench, and it is a bench. It includes Richie, it includes Manquillo, it includes loads of Lascelles, it includes loads of people who won't beat this club very much longer. Now, the interesting thing with City, they've won the title 4 seasons out the last 5. And yet people are saying, some people down in the Manchester area, etc., are saying that Haaland, who is an absolute goal machine, he is not too happy because of the way they're playing. He gets the fewest touches in the match now, etc., etc. He wants their game to be dovetailed more to him. Manchester City fans are saying, well, we've won 4 titles out of 5, so do we have to change? You know what? I would love the problem of Haaland and all his goals at Newcastle United, I mean, Haaland's supposed to be a problem at Man City, and he scored more goals than Miguel Mayon will score in his career. He scored them in half a season. I mean, I tell you what, if he's a problem, can we just take him to get rid of the problem for Man City and let him play centre forward for us? Because we would qualify for the Champions League with Haaland centre forward. But it's amazing, and you're smiling, Malcolm, and so am I. But I have read that. I've read a debate in Manchester about whether his style is restricting the free-flowing football that City play, because you've got to play to a target man who won. And he equally is thinking, I'm getting 12 touches in a game. I'm not enjoying it because it's not coming in first time. It goes out, we do another fancy dan, we do a couple of step overs, we come back in. It's me. I would love that problem. If Haaland is feeling a bit upset, he can come up here, and I don't mind paying for his taxi because I know Malcolm will chip in, so I'll only be paying half us. I mean, I'll take him up here. But if I'm looking at Saturday and it's will they play Foden or not, will they play this guy or not, will they play Mahrez or not, I think the way we are playing at the moment, results-wise, with the defence on set pieces and our lack of scoring goals, I can only see one result. I don't think for 1 second we'll be humiliated, because we don't do that. I don't think we'll be blown out the water by them scoring 4 or 5 or 6 goals, although Manchester City can always do that. But I think we'll lose. If it's with dignity, it's still a loss. But I'm much more concerned at what comes after Manchester City. We've got to get it right. We've got to beat Wolves. We've got to beat Nottingham Forest, and we've got to beat West Ham.
Yeah.
Prediction, John?
Defeat.
Okay. Malcolm, what about you? Your prediction?
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think we're probably the only team in the country that's been 3-1 up against Man City.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. And so if Eddie Howe makes those changes up front and it all clicks and it works, who's to say that we can't go and really cause a surprise? After losing a cup final, there's every likelihood that the team will suddenly bounce back. But I think that could happen if changes are made, and and I really would like to see Gordon and Isak playing off of Wilson. It's a real tall order that we're asking for Newcastle to go there and even come back with just a point. But yeah, I know they're a hell of a side. I really would like to say that Newcastle are going to come back with something, but no, I'm like you, John. I really don't think that's going to happen. And but I would like to see us attack them. I would like to see us stick the ball in the net and give Man City some problems, and get them having to chase for a good spell in the game. I think Man City will win something like 3-1.
Well, I've gone 3-1 as well, lads, to Man
you really?
City. I cannot see Newcastle getting a win. I think they'll be on a crest of a slump after losing the final. I don't think whatever Eddie does, he's going to change it. But sadly,
Well, he should. He should change it.
He needs to. He needs to.
Yeah,
But,
he must change it, Mal. He must. I don't think it necessarily change the result. But if you don't play £100 million worth of forwards when you're not scoring goals, when are you going to play them?
Sure,
well,
and yes, and to add on to that, the defence has spent so many weeks now constantly under pressure because the lads up front aren't sticking the ball in the net.
Yeah,
that's got to change, and the defence will get better for it.
Big weekend. Let's see what happens. Look forward to seeing you guys next week. Just been told there's only 15 tickets left for the Surf Cafe for Malcolm and Gibbo. So if you want to go, don't miss out. They do sell quickly. Okay, lads. See you next week. Take care.
Indeed.
God bless. We'll get there.
Enjoy your weekend of football, everyone.